Welcome to math class. Today we are going to talk about micrometers and calipers. So you may or may not know what those things are. They are tools that are used to measure small things with incredible accuracy, in fact, to the nearest hundredth of a centimeter or a millimeter, depending on what tool you have, which is pretty crazy. So this is a caliper. A caliper is a device used to measure the distance between two opposite sides of an object. So the way that this works is that this part here, this part is connected and it slides back and forth. And as it slides back and forth, these scales here move, and then we can read what the measurement is. And so we're going to learn how to do that. So either you stick an object in between these two things here and clamp it up tight, or you use this end up here and do something, put it in the inside of a pipe and then spread it out as far as it will go. And then it will tell you the measurement there. So how do we actually do this? So a caliper, has this fixed scale that stays the same, and then this bottom part down here that slides back and forth, and it makes these things line up in different spots. So the first thing you want to do is read the value on the fixed scale located exactly at or just to the left of the zero. So what we want to do is look at where is this zero here hitting. So in this case, it is between 2.2 and 2.3 millimeters. So it's not quite at the 2.3, so that means it's 2.2. So we're going to write that down. 2.2, I said millimeters, I meant centimeters. 2.2 centimeters. So that is what we learn from this fixed scale at the top. Now to get the next place value, the hundredth of a centimeter, we want to identify the next line on the moving scale that aligns with a line on the fixed scale. So now that sounds really confusing, but really what that means is I'm looking at all these values here on this moving scale to figure out which one lines up the best with the top scale. So let's just get rid of those so that we can see which one lines up the best. So when we are looking, we can see we have an arrow pointing to it. But you can see here that this one lines up pretty perfectly, okay? And so we need to figure out which one that is. So if we count, we've got, this is the zero right here. And then we've got 1, 2, 3. So that means the next place value is a 3. So we've got a 0.03. That's to the nearest hundredth of a centimeter. So then the last step there would be to add the values together to get the final reading. So we add those together and we get 2.23 centimeters on this caliper. So the first thing we want to do is look at where this top one is hitting, and then we look at where this bottom one is hitting. And we combine those two to give us the reading of the caliper. So let's practice that again. So the first thing we want to do is look, where is the zero hitting the top scale? Well, this zero is hitting the top scale right there in between, right before 1.9 millimeters. So we're not at the 1.9 yet, so we've got 1.8. Oh, I said millimeters again. I mean centimeters. 1.8 centimeters. And now we analyze the bottom scale and we look for which one lines up the best. And in my professional opinion, it looks like it's this fourth one here. So that is representing 0.04 centimeters. Because it goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we've got 1.8 centimeters and 0.04 centimeters, which gives us 1.84 centimeters because we add those two together. So hopefully this is starting to make sense. Again, look at where is this zero hitting the top scale. Well, it's right after the 3.4 centimeters. It's not quite at the 3.5. So we're at 3.4 centimeters. Now we look at the bottom scale and we analyze which one hits the best. And here again, it looks like it is the 0.04 on the bottom scale. That's the best. Centimeters, which gives us a reading of 3.44 centimeters. So measuring centimeters to the nearest hundredth is pretty specific. We've got one more. This one I want you to try on your own. So you could pause the video and see if you can do it on your own. So this one's a bit of a trickier one, but if you can see really closely, this 0 is not quite yet at the 4.8. It is just before it. It's a little bit hard to see because this is a picture of a book, but it is not quite at the 4.8, so it's just before it. So we've got 4.7 centimeters. And then again, analyzing the bottom scale, this one, the one that matches up the best here is, I think, the 8th one. So that would be 0.08 centimeters for a total of 4.78 centimeters. And that would make sense that it's so close to 4.8 centimeters because our 0 was so close to 4.8 centimeters here. So those are calipers. Now, on to micrometers. What is a micrometer? So it's the same kind of thing, it's just set up in a different way. It's got a calibrated screw. So what happens is you take this part and you turn it, and as you turn it, this part here moves back and forth, and it also causes this part to move back and forth, and so we see more or less of that scale. Now this one actually measures to the nearest hundredth of a millimeter, which is crazy. So we've got 3 different scales here. We've got this top scale here, we've got this bottom scale, and then we've got this vertical one. So we start with the top one. Read the scale on the sleeve. The upper scale shows entire millimeter divisions. So in this case, we can see that this goes all the way to 12 millimeters. So we've got 12, let's try writing that a little bit nicer, 12 millimeters. The lower scale, so that's this one down here, shows 0.5 millimeter divisions. So can we see the 0.5 that's after the 12? Yes, we can. It's right there. So that means not only do we have 12 millimeters, we've got 0.5 of a millimeter. And now we are going to see where this line that's straight across here hits this vertical scale. So we've got 10 down here, 15 and 20. Well, we're one above the 15, so that would mean 16. And that's hundredths of millimeters. So that's 0.16 millimeters. And again, then to find the measurement, we just total all these up. So we have 12.66 millimeters. And that is how you read a micrometer. So you look at the top scale, see how many millimeters you've got on the top scale, then you check, can we see that half on the bottom? That's after my millimeter marking on the top. Yes, we can in this case. And then we look at the vertical one and add them all together. So 2 more practice questions and then we will be done. What do we see here on this first micrometer? We see up to 16 millimeters here. We can see this 16 millimeter marking right here. So we've got 16 millimeters. Now this vertical scale cuts off right after that 16, so we do not see the 0.5 on the bottom. So we are not going to add 0.5 because it's not past the 0.5. And then we look at this horizontal line. Where does that hit? Well, it hits halfway between the 35 and the 36 hundredths. So halfway between 35 and 36 hundredths is 35 and a half hundredths. So we add those together and we get 16.355 millimeters. All right, last one. So again, we start with the top scale. How many whole millimeters do we see? We see 7 millimeters. Can we see the 0.5 that's after the 7? Yes, we can. That's this one right here. So we're going to add the 0.5. And then we look at this vertical scale, and it is to the 26. So that's 26 hundredths of a millimeter. And then we total those together, and we get 7.76 millimeters. So these micrometers are very accurate. If you turn this thing even just a little bit, well, it obviously goes to the next hundredth of a millimeter. So remember, if you think about what a hundredth of a millimeter is, it's 1 millimeter, so think of how big that is on a ruler, but divided into 100 different pieces. That's very tiny. Anyways, now you get an assignment to practice working with calipers and micrometers. That is all.